That's right. It's what everybody's been waiting for. And I grabbed some of the most cursed images I could find off of the internet for this one. I actually don't know if I want to go in this order. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go in this order. Alright. Number 1, Chunky Kong. Chunky is rocketing straight up to S tier. I know, it's a surprise. But I've thought about this for a while, and I think this is the best take I have. Chunky is... Every Kong has 5 moves, right? You've got your gun, your instrument. You've got a pad move. You've got a physical move. Something that somebody does, just like as some kind of action. And you've got your barrel move. Chunky has 6 moves. Chunky uses barrel throwing to pick up boulders, and that is an entire move. That is extra checks. Chunky has more checks, or more moves than everybody else. I'll say that right here. I think that makes him better, but I'm not done yet. 2. Chunky's... Every Kong, when they get hit, have like a different distance they get hit. If you go into the arena with Lanky, and you get hit, you're gonna fly across the stage. If you're in caves, in the cabins area, and you get hit, you're gonna fly the whole way to the igloo. If you're Chunky, you're gonna stay right there. And that's big time, because health, living is usually not an issue. The cost of getting hit by an enemy is falling off of something, particularly in terms of like a splat. A lot of those tricky ones that are on the platforms, you need somebody with a little bit of girth to stay there and not fly off. Chunky's a very safe character to play as. Chunky's dash, like the dash jump, is faster than Lanky's and Tiny's. He's the 3rd fastest Kong despite being big. His jump has a relatively good horizontal distance, and he hangs out in the air for a while. But here's the biggest thing. Out of everything, how often are you upset when you find a Chunky move in the randomizer? Every single one of Chunky's moves is useful. Hunky Chunky. You can't do the Hunky Chunky checks other than that one caves check without Hunky Chunky, and that's his worst move. Hunky Chunky, also canonically, he's the first... That's the thing about Chunky, he's dead. Excuse me. When you have a Chunky K rule, you need Punch, you need Hunky Chunky, and you need Gorilla Gone. That's 3 of his moves. When you have Chunky Helm, you need Triangle. When you have... and you always need Chunky for Gorilla Gone to get into Helm. In addition, Pineapple has the best utility out of any gun in the game. It has the biggest hitbox, and it's got the strongest strength value. Pineapple does 3, Coconut and Peanut do 2, and Feather and Grape do 1. So, to elaborate here, there is no Chunky move that you don't want, so you're always excited to get a Chunky move. You're always excited to find Chunky in a check, because Chunky's always required and has good moves and good utility with weight, strength, and Pineapple. And Chunky's required for every single seed in regular settings. Not NSAK, because you can use, like, charge and stuff like that. In addition, Chunky's got personality. I don't know who's ever... Us randomizers might be afraid of that tag barrel. But if you hop into that tag barrel and see the coward... I'm not gonna say coward. See how afraid Chunky is to go on this adventure? And you see the courage it takes for him to overcome that, which he does. He wants you to go and pick Tiny instead. He wants to run. But when he's called on, he comes out of the barrel and he makes it happen. Chunky might be the most afraid... He might be the most scared Kong, but he's also the bravest. And that's why I'm giving him S tier. Next we got Diddy Kong. I'd say Diddy Kong's a fan favorite, but I can only give him A tier. Diddy's got hops. That's really nice. With Dang, here's another thing. With Diddy and Chunky combined, you can jump and switch to Chunky in the air to get more like grab range, and you can make some jumps that you just would not be able to otherwise. Totally invalidating Simeon Spring. The biggest problem with Diddy is that he's got a couple moves that just blow. Simeon Spring might be the single worst Kong-specific ability in the game. You can skip it almost 100% of the time. I'm not sure if it's 100, but it's pretty darn close. Now, Rocket Barrel. Now, I'd say Diddy's mostly good. That's why he's an A tier. Rocket Barrel, there's a lot of stuff you can only do with Rocket Barrel. And Rocket Barrel also provides a lot of utility in its speed. When I'm getting around caves, I'm either using the banana port pads, or I'm using Rocket Barrel to go as fast as I can from side to side, getting a lot of splats and other things along the way without even having to land. Peanuts opens up like half of Japes. There's the mountainside, like the mountain tunnel thing. There's the painting room, and then there's the initial tunnel with the grape and the feather cage inside of it. I'd say Peanut's pretty useful, and one of the other factors that's very important to me in DK64 randomizers with guns is how do you do in the mini game where you've got the Kong in the center and you're being attacked by Kremlins on all sides. I'd probably rather have Peanuts than any other gun for that, because of how rapid it is and the fact that if my aim isn't on point, the alternating guns on both sides of the enemy is going to give me a greater breadth of reach with the Peanuts, ensuring that I'm a little bit more safe. And that's one area where Chunky's Pineapple doesn't quite make the cut, is it stands over his shoulder, so it goes at an odd angle that's kind of hard to align with a top-down view. But the Peanuts, it's both sides, so you're covered a little bit with your mistakes. In addition, it's a value of 2 for its attack bonus. That's pretty nice. Diddy's movement speed, both underwater and on land, is like above average. I think it's the fastest swimming speed and the second fastest running speed, if you do kind of the tricks. Guitar opens up all of Aztec. What else is there? Charge. And no, that's it. It's just Charge is the other one. And like Chimpy Charge is like whatever. He doesn't have the mind-blowing strengths that Chunky does, and that's gonna hold him back from the S tier. But I'd say Diddy Kong is pretty good. One thing I want to note about these two Kongs is I will dock them a little bit for their custom colors. I think a strength of Lanky is the fact that both the overalls and the fur get a different custom color, which can make for some like very fun variations. Chunky and I'm getting my internet checked out. This is the last straw. It betrayed me at the most crucial moment. Please let me know if you can see or hear me. You're back? Alright, thank you very much. Sorry about that. I think I'm gonna get an internet upgrade very soon. Thank you very much. We're just gonna keep on going. That was Diddy. Next, I'm gonna go Donkey Kong. S tier. Easy S tier. I lost sound and you froze for a minute. Thank you for letting me know. I definitely appreciate it. Here's the thing about Donkey Kong. Yes, Gorilla Grab, Strong Kong, and Blast aren't the best moves ever. They feel a little bit like throwaway moves. However, DK's movement is so unbelievably good that it makes up for any shortcomings in his moves. you can roll. There's a huge gap between the speed of a DK roll and a Diddy cartwheel and jump. When I'm in a randomizer, I gotta move. The cost of losing speed as I'm navigating around these maps is not going to be worth it ever. I always want Donkey Kong to roll around fast. In addition, Coconut is a very good gun. 2 damage, so utility's fine. But it opens up the entire hillside, the lighthouse area in Galleon, and that is not just to open up a couple more checks. The water level, which you can change behind there, influences the entirety of the level. There's access to a couple checks in the tree and a castle room and castle. I'm just going through all the places. And there's the check in Creme Isle, which is pretty convenient to get. I lost like 5 people because that internet dropped. I'm gonna talk to Xfinity very soon because this is quite silly. Coconut's so good. Not pineapple good, but it's very good. DK is not required by default in every seed, which is why I put him a little bit behind Chunky. But he does... that movement is just unbelievable. And it's not just his ability to roll and go fast. It's his jumping ability too. You can skip ponytail twirl checks with a DK kick. You can get over gaps efficiently. The DK kick jump is fast and effective and very strong. So DK's pretty big time. Now looking at a couple of his moves, ooh, actually I have another point about Chunky that's very important. Very important. Chunky's checks are incredibly dense. And this is something I'm going to talk about as I go into the other Kongs. If you go into Japes, you go over to the lowlands and you find the boulder. You throw the boulder, you get a check. You go down into the hole, and you find 2 more checks. There's 3 checks right next to each other. The other ones are in the hillside and in the hive area, which is fine. But we'll keep going here. You go into Angry Aztec, the next level. Go into the Chunky 5-door temple. You've got a Kasplat, a Dirt Patch, and a straight up check in there. Chunky's checks are incredibly dense, and that's important because any character that I have, when I'm going through a randomizer, if I'm not looking directly for something that's hinted or something I expect, I'm gonna be going for those high density checks. Chunky allows so much of that. Back to DK. I don't remember where I got to dense checks off of. But he's S tier for the reasons I talked about. Blast. Baboon Blast is not something that can be avoided. There's no way to skip those checks, so it's a good move to have when you have it. And Blast is a little bit slept on, even though the courses are kind of annoying because you can get coins and colored bananas in those courses. Strong Kong can typically be avoided, but it's kind of nice to have. I will say Donkey's Igloo blows because you have to, every time you get hit by that spinning ice thing, you lose an entire melon, which is ridiculous and unfounded in this game. Yeah. Donkey Kong's S tier. Next, we're gonna go with Crusha. For those who don't know, Crusha is a character who you can unlock in multiplayer, who has a lime grenade launcher and is a Kremlin. I'm putting him in A tier, and you might be like, alright, he's not a Kong, what's he doing here? I don't see him in the normal randomizers. So you can replace Crusha with any of the Kongs. And he will basically just like be there and use their abilities and take their abilities. So for example, say I wanted to have Crusha in my randomizer. I could put him in Tiny slot. And then he would get the moves when they're available. Feather Bow, Mini Monkey, Ponytail Twirl, etc. Watching this big crocodile dude do Ponytail Twirl by literally spinning in the air with like his arms out and being like muscular as heck, it's an absolute joy. He's hilarious. He does a little slide thing when he runs, which is pretty cool. It's a nice variety from all the mammals. In general, big Crusha fan. So I'm gonna put him at A tier, which I'm pretty happy with. I don't have a lot of experience with him, so I can't really go more into it, and he doesn't have his own like factors. Aesthetically, I think he's pretty cool. He's got the camo. He's pretty committed to who he is. So I'm a big fan of that. Next, this pains me. We got our boy Lanky. No style, no grace. Ooh, and we're putting him in last place. Lanky's thing is that he's like long and like posable. And the fact that he can hit enemies from a long range, like a spear mechanic in another game, is not explored in the entire game until the final boss battle against K. Rool. That to me is pretty unbelievable. That there wasn't like a check, and I know that's not randomizer specific, but that there was no check where you have to like hit a button on the other side of a gate or something like that using his arms, and like you had to get Lanky first. Like that would have been great for Japes, because you'd walk up and you'd be like, man, what do I do about this? Like, is there a switch or something? I just learned about switches in the hillside. No, you got to get your Kong and come back. And it's just not touched at all until you get to his phase in K. Rool, which is super goofy. So, I mean, that's like a small mechanic, and kind of fun with his arms. Some pluses for Lanky. One, his custom colors are pretty good, because all of his orange fur gets replaced with whatever color you picked. Meaning you can end up with some very like fun and vibrant combinations between his fur and his overalls. And style's big when you're looking at these monkeys for like 2 hours at a time, like over and over again. Like you want a little bit of variety, and that definitely adds a nice touch. Thinking about Lanky's moves, tell me this. What Lanky checks do you actually enjoy doing? Anything with Orang Stand Sprint is pretty much a disaster. There's some nice utility to Orang Stand Sprint, because you get to go fast, and you get places faster. But you could pass most of it up using a DK roll anyways. What, do I want to do a beetle race in caves? No. Do I want to do rabbit race in forest? No. I just named 2 of the worst checks in the game. Those are both Lanky. Orang Stand's pure Orang Stand? Well, you could skip all that shit with Tiny. You don't need that at all. You can kick slide up the hill. Alright, so now we've knocked out 2 of Lanky's moves is interesting. Alright, well now, Lanky's usually, if any Kong is not required for a seed, Lanky is the most likely to be not required. Baboon Balloon? You could skip a lot of that with a Diddy backflip and switch to Chunky or Lanky in the air. So then we go to his good moves. You've got Grape, and you've got Trombone. Trombone's pretty good. There's some stuff that you can only do with Trombone. It's an instrument, it's fine. Grape. Grape's where I really start to have a problem with Lanky. It's all of his utility stuff that really sets him behind the others. If I'm in that minigame where I'm stuck in the middle and the enemies are coming at me, there's nobody I want less than Lanky Kong. His cardboard toilet paper tube that shoots out grapes is so far away that it feels like weird, like where it comes out, and it's really hard to figure out how you're gonna hit these guys. In addition, it's Grape Sniper, and it doesn't have any additional sniping properties. There's no benefit. It does 1 damage. It has a weak feedback sound. Like, it's not satisfying when you hit an enemy with Grape. It's like... I'm a little displeased with Lanky. Now he is silly, and he makes sounds like, hoopla! And that's a lot of fun. But he needs more than that. And like I said earlier, when you hit Lanky, my man flies like straight across the map at 90 miles an hour. I'm not that excited when I find Lanky. Now notice he's a B tier. Any Kong is good. There's no bad Kong. You open up tons of checks. Banana medals. Anything you could ask for. Having Kongs is good. But compared to the other Kongs, he struggles. That's just a fact. Finally, we've got Tiny Kong. Tiny, I'm going for A tier. So Tiny and Diddy are pretty similar. They've got good hops. They can get in the air, and they can make some jumps. So that's pretty cool. Ponytail Twirl is a great utility move. You can not only do ponytail twirl checks, but you can skip over platforming sections or have confidence in navigating platforming sections that you would not be able to without ponytail twirl. I'd say DK Kick is secondary to ponytail twirl because of the horizontal distance. Mini Monkey is a really strong ability. It's used in so many places for some pretty dense checks. Treasure chest. The Aztec urn area in the Llama Temple. A lot of good density, and there's just no way to get around the requirement for it. And it seems to be required a lot. Also required for K. Rool. Feather, not an incredible gun, but high velocity of feather releases. I'd say a more satisfying, like, hitbacks, or, feedback sound when you hit something with feather. And in that gun minigame I've been talking about, one really nice thing about Tiny and Featherbow is that instead of just killing an enemy instantly, it takes a couple hits to kill them, which sounds odd, but you can kind of stall the enemies and, like, stagger them and force their spawning in a way that you want to, by the fact that you can hit them and knock them back a couple of times before they actually die. That gives you greater control over how much you're getting swarmed in that minigame, which is very important. And another big thing is that Feather, when she does that, Featherbow is like in the middle of her body, so it's very clear in what direction you're shooting and where you're going to hit an enemy from. That's big time. Tiny is required for all seeds because of Monkey Port, a requirement to get in the helm. Tiny's overalls and hair and hat change as a part of custom coloring. That bottom layer of her cap that you can see right here is actually her hair. So it's fun to see that variety in terms of color and just aesthetics. Her dash is not incredible. Her hit back is not incredible, which is why she's at the bottom of A tier. But she's just required for so many things that I gotta have her in A. Yeah, that's the Kong's tier list. Now we're gonna get into some more goofy stuff.